We've often heard from NHL players about what their draft day experience was like or how it feels to win a big game. But today, on a special Mother's Day edition of the Locked On Predators podcast, we get to hear about major hockey milestones from the perspective of a hockey mom. I'm joined by Stacey Matier, who talks about her experience raising Predators prospect Jack Matier.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Predators podcast, and thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Of course, a special shout out goes to our Locked On Predhead family, our everyday listeners. We love spending a bit of our day with you. I'm Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer and editor at InsideThePreds.com, and I'm usually joined by my partner in crime, Nick Morgan. But today I am welcoming a very special guest. I am so excited for you to meet and hear from. I am joined today by Stacey Matier, an amazing woman in her own right and mom to Tanner and Jack Matier. Of course, Jack was a 2021 Nashville Predators draft pick and is coming off of an incredible season in the OHL with the Ottawa 67s. Today, Stacey opens up about Jack's incredible hockey journey from her perspective. She shares how it felt to wait with Jack on draft day, the importance of an amazing billet family, and she tells us whether hockey moms can be just as superstitious as the players. I am joined now by Stacey Matier. Stacey is wife to Mark. She is mother to Tanner and Jack Matier, which is a name that I think is going to be very familiar to the Nashville Predators community. Of course, Jack was a 2021 Nashville Predators draft pick, signed with the Predators in October of that year, and he has had a fantastic season with the Ottawa 67s. So, Stacey, thank you so very much for coming on and joining us. I have wanted to do a chat with a mom for forever, so I'm so excited to get to do this with you.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so we're going to go way, way back and just kind of start with, that I know that your husband had kind of his own hockey career too. Was hockey something that you grew up playing? Did you grow up watching it? Were you interested in it at all?
No, not at all, actually. Mark played for the Greyhounds here, and we went to high school together. Well, he's a couple of years older than me, but we'll leave that part out.
No, we add that part when they're older.
No, but growing up, I never, other than, you sort of watched like the Leafs and things like that. But no, I never was interested, never played. My brother never played. So when I met Mark, we met at school and we've been together ever since. But then I got into it right away, right? It's so exciting. And
it doesn't take much to get into it.
No. And he was here for his whole 3 years and we met his second year. So yeah.
Very cool. So when did Jack first start playing hockey, and was it something that he really liked right away, or did it take him some time to get to appreciate it?
No, he liked it. So his brother, he always was at the rink with his older brother, right? So but when Jack started, he was 4 years old and he just loved it, worked so hard, always, wanting to get better. And he just never complained about going to the rink. And he was a big kid at a young age, so he'd be out there. And so he looked quite large compared to some of the kids out there. And no, he did. He just loved it from day one. So
I think it helps too when it's a younger sibling and they just always are trying to keep up with that older sibling.
Yeah, exactly. And Jack was always knowing all the parents. He loved going to the rink and watching Tanner before he could even play. And, every parent would buy him Skittles. He likes Skittles. That's Jack's favorite candy. So, so everybody would buy him Skittles. And he started to skate in the backyard rink. Obviously, he Mark had a backyard rink for the kids in this cold northern Ontario weather. And so Jack and Tanner and Mark would be out there, and yeah, they just loved it. And, it just, he never ever not wanting to go to the rink. That was never nothing we had to fight with them for. And yeah, so.
That's amazing. So, was there a moment for you where you kind of were watching Jack and thought, okay, this might be something that's more than just a fun hobby for him. This might be something that he, has the talent to pursue, or that he really seems like he wants to do more. Did you kind of have a moment like that with him?
Yes. Well, it was, he played up a year minor midget. So he jumped up a year. So he had 2 years of minor midget. And he always sort of just had that work ethic, and he really stood out. I don't want to make it sound like but he just had the work ethic and the determination, and he didn't have to be told to do, you know what I mean? He just was very well coachable. And as time went on, then he jumped up that year of minor midget. And I can remember being at some of the tournaments, and all of a sudden scouts are sort of around. And it was kind of like, wow, like this is getting kind of where it's might move on to something more. And, me and my husband, the next year is when he got an agent, because they sort of come to you, and Mark knows Jack's agent and that agency very well. Yeah. And so we went to see it, and then Jack ended up, but that's kind of where we sort of realized that we always knew he had something special, that, he would probably move on and play. And Mark always did say, I think Jack will play somewhere, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whether it's, but then as time goes on, and it goes by so fast, he got drafted, and then like now we're on to this already. Like it went by so quick, junior. We don't know what will happen next year, but right now he's up in Milwaukee skiing and practicing, and he's loving that right now. So, but yeah, there was definitely something special about him that we could see him pursuing hockey for sure.
So you mentioned him being drafted. Let's kind of go back. So it was April of 2019 when he was drafted into the OHL by the Ottawa 67s. Can you kind of go back and talk about what that experience was like for you? Like, what do you remember about that day? What do you remember thinking about? What were kind of the feelings that you as his mom went through as he was waiting to hear?
It was nerve. We were all nervous.
Oh gosh, I bet.
A lot of family came. Mark's family's from down in Niagara area. So they were up here, and we did have some friends in that, because kind of you sort of know, like with all the interviewing and whatever, that he'll probably get drafted. So we did have some friends in that here. The draft starts at, I believe it started at like 9:30 in the morning. So all of our family, it was really busy here.
Yeah.
And so then we waited and like, you know what I mean? You're sitting there, and he ended up being drafted to Ottawa, and we just were like so excited. But I was a little bit mixed, because it was kind of that, he's going to be leaving home. It kind of hit me a little bit later. I sort of was a little sad, thinking at 16 he could possibly be leaving home already.
Oh my gosh, yes.
But no, it was just so exciting. And like being in Northern Ontario, the kids don't always get seen as often, right? And they're not always at the bigger tournaments and that. So it's hard to know, but like when his name was called, it was just like, and himself and his dad, it was just emotional to watch them,
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah. So, but Jack got a phone call right away before they actually announced it on the TV. So he ran into the bedroom, and then he came out, and then they announced it. So yeah.
That's so amazing. What an amazing moment.
I know it was. And it was a great day. Like all our family, friends, some of his coaches were here, and it was very nice.
That's sweet. So you mentioned talking about Jack kind of moving away at 16. So it's like, what, about 9 hours from
Yes.
Sault Ste. Marie to Ottawa? What was that like for you? This is one of my biggest questions when I think about the moms. Like, were you nervous about him kind of heading off on his own? Was there any advice that you gave him? What was that experience like for you?
Well, it was very hard.
Mm-hmm.
We went for rookie or development camp the following weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And so Jack obviously signed that weekend. So we knew for sure that he was going. The nice thing is, Mrs. D, who looks after all the boys and all their education end of it and sets up all the housing, she was like, I think I have a perfect match for Jack. And, we asked a lot of questions and they were so helpful and made the whole experience that much easier. But we ended up getting to meet Jack's billet family that he'd be living with possibly. And so we went to the house. But the weekend that we went back for training camp and we knew he was staying,
Mm-hmm.
excuse me, was like dropping him off that night. It was hard. Like he came for supper and stuff with us. And then actually we went to their house for dinner. So a couple of their friends and that were there, and then just leaving them, and there was people still there. So we went outside, and yeah, it was really sad leaving them. So then Mark and I went back to the hotel, and the next day driving by where the cutoff, I'm like, oh, and yeah, the tears for probably a good hour or so. But I mean, just the connection we had right away with his billet family and the home and the environment, and they had 2 boys as well. So it was kind of nice for Jack to have that.
Yeah.
But they were wonderful people. And I mean, we were writing their thank you card when we were just there a few weeks ago, and she sent me a message and I said, there's nothing that we could even say or show the appreciation. Like, man, you took care of my kid, and Jack never had a moment where, there was always that little homesick and
Sure.
Yeah, I want you guys to come this weekend. And there was no doubt we got in the car and drove the 9 hours, because the minute he says, Mom, I want you to come,
we're there.
Yeah. And my husband's the same, and he said, and the good thing is that, he doesn't mind driving. So we would get in the car and go and spend the weekend and see a couple games. But it was, every time we said goodbye, it was always really hard.
Oh gosh.
But easier, right? Because
Yeah.
he's comfortable and he's happy. And so that makes a world of difference. But I mean, there was some tears.
That's a big one. I don't know that it matters even what age, but especially at that age, like, oh gosh.
Yeah, I know, because you're just thinking when they get the flu or just
Yes.
all those moments that you're there for, and then just missing, right? A lot. Like, luckily we could watch on TV, but still, just to give a hug after the game or all those little things like that, but mean a lot to us moms or dads.
Yes.
So.
Coming up, Stacey shares her experience waiting with Jack for that all-important call from the Nashville Predators. First, want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by our great friends at eBay Motors. For a championship team, it is all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure the part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win with the right parts and when they are guaranteed. So get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, exclusions apply. fast forward a little bit, and I don't know what your experience is with teenage boys. I will just tell you my experience with teenage boys is they don't always share all of the details like you wish that they would.
Yeah.
So when it came time for the NHL draft, did you know that he had spoken with Nashville? Did you have an idea of what the teams were that were looking at them or at him for the draft?
Yes. He spoke to most teams. There was a couple that he didn't speak to, but he was interviewed by most. And I think too, with not having that, with it being COVID year, it was tough, right? So we did know a lot because actually when I was logging in here was Stacey Matier for the last
Oh, that's probably true.
the
Yes.
last meeting on here. So I had to change that to me. But he had tons of he was in his bedroom a lot with the online meetings, and so we did know it was tough not playing that year because he had his rookie year, but he played on a really good team. He lucked out. He got a lot of experience that year, and so when we did worry, like we didn't know what would happen because not playing a whole year, and that's kind of where you have more confidence, and he probably could have done a lot that year, and so it kind of holds the kids all back a year, right? But we knew that Nashville had talked to him, and there was probably most of them did actually. So
so going to draft day for the NHL, was it kind of the same? Did you have a bigger group there? Did you watch it kind of all together? How were you feeling about this one this time around? You'd been through it once, but how did it feel going through this whole draft experience again?
It was nervous, this one, because then you're really getting at the point, like they really, you know what I mean? It's just that dream, right? And so we had knowing that he spoke to a lot of teams, everything seemed really positive. Playing for under 18s. Jack went away for that. And he played a lot and had a great tournament. And I think that helped him so much. But going the night before when we did talk to Jack's agent, it was like, he could go here, he could go there. And, then he had a better look. He was just like, kind of like, it's tough because some kids just aren't even being really noticed, because of the COVID and everything. So, then my stomach was full of butterflies because then I was like, and then we did have family. We had family from out of town, and that it was very rainy that day. And we did have a friend of ours set up. He has a business. So we had like a TV outside under a white tent and stuff.
Oh, nice.
So most of them were watching out there, and Mark and I and Jack were in here. He would go out and then back in, but as the rounds would go on and the picks, it was like, so we were actually sitting in here with Jack, and I had just gotten up. Jack got up to walk, and I could hear like my neighbors down the way yelling because everything was sort of delayed. They got it before us.
Oh no.
Well, I could hear people, and then all of a sudden Mark just jumped up and he's like, Stacey Matier, and it was Nashville, and it was on the screen. So we just like, Jack grabbed me, and actually I was the first one to hug him. It was just so emotional, and my husband as well. And then everyone flew in from at the side door and flew in. It was all hugs and celebrations for sure. So, they put in so much work.
Oh, and like you said, this is one of those milestone moments where in some kids work so very hard and the door doesn't necessarily open. What was it like, the waiting with him? Did you give him any advice? Did you just kind of sort of let it go, let it ride?
Yeah.
Were you able to eat anything?
Not really. We were pretty quiet in here. And then like you see other kids going ahead that you might you know what I mean? And so then kind of we'd say a word every once in a while, but it was pretty quiet, just kind of watching. But I could tell he was really nervous and getting up, and I was just thinking, just please someone call his name,
Yes.
it's really nerve-wracking. But I mean, after it was all done, obviously it's unbelievable to think that that he came this far.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it really is.
So speaking of how far he's come, let's talk about his last season, this past season in Ottawa. What a year he had. What was that like for you? Did you get to see you talked about maybe not always getting to a lot of the games. Did you get to see him play very many of these games? And what was it like seeing him have just this season? He played 58 games, 49 points defensively, rock star. I mean, what was that like for you?
It was unbelievable. We were there for a lot of games. We try to get there like every 3 weeks or so to Ottawa because we'd get to spend the most time with them. So we try to make it and then obviously if we can go to any games on the road, that was always a bonus as well.
Mm-hmm.
We were there for his first when he had that 5-point game,
Oh
and
my
he had
gosh, yes.
9. So like we couldn't even believe that because I mean we didn't expect that he would go to Nashville and all this would happen so quickly, and so watching him this year, very, very proud of him. Like
Oh gosh.
yeah, and he played his part, right? And then the offense came too because he was always very offensive. Obviously, when you kind of move up like that to the OHL, you're not going to do that anymore. You're going to make sure, right?
Right.
Before you're
Right.
skating up the ice. And, but no, like showing his offense this year and doing what he did and being a leader. So many people, we'd go to Ottawa, they just had so many great things to say about him, which makes us even more proud, right? If you can always hear
Oh
just
yeah.
how great your kid is, or like how polite he is, or went out of his way for a fan, or it just makes it even more. But watching him play this year, yeah, it was pretty exciting.
It was
It was
amazing. It was so
nerve-wracking, but
I imagine it was really fun. I will say here in Nashville, we keep our eye on the players, and it was so fun to see so many highlights
I
from Jack
don't
popping up.
think people expected that.
Hmm.
So, but Ottawa too, they really have a great, skills team, workouts. Like they really run you know what I mean? A really good
Yes.
program, and
Yeah.
they're a great team. So I think that's really, really helped with his development.
Hmm.
But I think he just had more confidence this year, and that makes you feel better, right? Because
Yeah.
you're always going to make mistakes and you learn from them. But this year he did really well, and he made us all really proud. So
Nashville feels the same way. Nashville, super proud. And I
uh,
know that Jack has some gold medals from Worlds. Do you have the gold medals, or does Jack have the gold medals with him?
he has his world gold medal is with
Hmm.
him, and then
Okay.
well, I guess they're both. Sorry, the world gold medal. No, the one he just won, the gold
Yes.
medal is with him, and his under 18 world medal is here.
Okay, that's smart. That's a great way to divide it up because I think you deserve to stare at a gold medal too.
Yeah, and he didn't get much time home after. Like he
Yeah.
literally flew home with us for like 2 days, and Ottawa wanted him to go back.
Hmm.
So he really had to take it, right? Because he had to wear it on the ice. But I'm sure it'll be home soon and we'll be able to celebrate with them.
Yeah.
We haven't really
Did
got to
you
do that.
did you get to go? Were you at Worlds this year?
Yes,
Oh,
we
that's so
were for
fun.
2 weeks. So we flew out in a really bad snowstorm. Didn't think we were going to make it, and we ended up making it. We were late, so we went in. He was playing an exhibition game, and then we were there for 2 weeks. It was so exciting.
Oh, I love that you were
Yeah,
there.
yeah, it was very exciting. Great experience, and I mean, Hockey Canada treated us all great, all the parents, and yeah, it was good.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
All right, Mother's Day's coming up. If you could plan the perfect Mother's Day, what would your perfect Mother's Day be?
My perfect Mother's Day?
Mhm.
I mean, to be with both of my boys.
I know. Oh,
you
yeah.
know, and like have supper and just go for a walk or just hang out and watch a movie. I
Yeah.
mean, anything like that. I'm
Yep.
pretty easygoing. The boys are pretty good, I think, because they never had a sister to do everything for them. I
I
always say
love
that
that.
because I have a brother, and then there's
You
me
took
and
care of it.
yeah. Actually, my brother was pretty good too. I can't say that,
Okay.
but
If Jack and Tanner had to cook you your favorite meal, what meal would they cook you? And would it be good?
yeah. They're really good at eggs and breakfast, so
Well,
maybe
that's healthy.
breakfast, but probably my favorite meal, maybe chicken parm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That
so
seems dangerous to leave up to young men.
yeah, or steak, but their dad cooks for them, so but I would say they would make me eggs, like
Okay.
breakfast, eggs, whatever, bacon, whatever.
Just some sort of mom's day brunch.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. So we know hockey players tend to be relatively superstitious. Are you superstitious when it comes to hockey games?
Yes.
What are
So
some of your superstitions?
usually if we win, especially not so much like during the season, but like when it comes down to like the gold medal
Oh,
game
gosh.
when you're when you're going into overtime, I was glad I wore the same jersey the whole time.
Yes.
Here too, if it's like even when they just lost out, you know, I kind of wore the same hoodie throughout. I would put it on at night. Mainly that. I'm not
Mhm.
too bad.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I would say I try to sort of pick the same hoodie or something lucky.
Yeah.
But
We do what we can. We do
yes,
everything we can to
I
support
know
them. I
exactly.
get
Oh,
that.
and we always send the text every morning.
Yeah.
My husband sends one and then I send one every morning. We never would miss on a game day.
Oh, I love that.
And then Jack will send back, you know, whatever back to us. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's superstitious for sure.
I love that.
Yeah.
So they always talk about it takes a village to raise a child. I'm sure that's very true in the hockey world. Who are the people in your village that have been really supportive, not just of Jack, but of you guys as his parents? Who's been really helpful for you guys and supportive through this process?
Grandparents,
Oh, come on. Yeah.
aunts and uncles, very supportive. Friends, but I mean, like my parents and Mark's parents get to travel quite often because they're in Niagara area. So
Hmm.
one thing Mark always said was the hardest times sometimes for him when he was playing, if his parents didn't go to a game, I don't even think they hardly missed when he played. They would travel down south
Yeah.
all over and like get up and go to work the next day. I'm like, holy man, they were, yeah. And I remember Mark saying sometimes it was lonely, like if everyone's parents were there and yours weren't, and it was dark and you're sitting on the bus sort of waiting.
Oh, yeah.
And one thing, Jack lucked out that way too, because Mark's parents traveled a lot to, you know, to see Jack. Most of his games, like in Oshawa, wherever they could travel to. They even traveled to Peterborough. I mean, they go to Ottawa too when we were going, but they would try to get to, you know, most games. And he always had a lot of family support. But my parents, you know, they didn't get to go and watch as often, but they always watch on TV. Now they're bored. They're like, what do we do without
Now what?
something?
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I would have to say like all our family and,
Hmm.
you know,
That's
friends.
amazing. That's great for
Yeah.
Jack too. I think that's really cool. What
Yeah.
have you enjoyed the most about just this experience that you've gotten to have as a parent, watching your son play hockey and kind of being just in the hockey world? What have you enjoyed the most?
I've enjoyed like watching every game, the excitement, all the people, meeting all the people, just the whole excitement of watching him grow into this
Yeah.
player that, yeah, like just, I don't know, it's hard to even now, like thinking, oh, like going to Nashville or Milwaukee, like it's crazy to think like this is really happening. I would say most of it's been very exciting. Um, just watching them develop and yeah, it's
Yeah.
just, yeah.
It's great. It's so wonderful and lovely to see your kids flourishing and growing, no
See,
matter where
yeah,
they are.
exactly.
Yeah.
Whether, yeah, and always doing their best. And, and if that's all they can do, I mean, everyone makes mistakes, and
Hmm.
some things never really doesn't always work out the way you want, but you just got to keep going and trying. And I think, I think I've taught them that never
You've
to give
done
up.
well. You've
Never give
done
up.
really well. You
Yeah,
have.
thank you.
Stacey, I want to thank you again so much for doing this. Like I said, this has always been a bucket list thing for me. And,
Aw.
I so appreciate your time and your insight. And also just want to say, come to Nashville. We would love to have you come down and see the city. And, we look forward to having Jack back for camps this summer.
I know.
Once again, I want to thank Stacey for joining us and for sharing her perspective on being a Predators prospect mom. Later this summer, we will have coverage of Jack and all of the other Predators prospects and new draft picks as they come to Nashville and prepare for development camp. Next week on the podcast, we're going to be recapping the Milwaukee Admirals playoff games happening this weekend as they continue their chase for the Calder Cup against a very tough Texas Stars team. We're also going to continue our offseason report cards, taking a look at one of Nashville's biggest season surprises. Of course, we want to thank you once again for making Locked On Predators your first listen of the day on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube. You can, of course, find us on Twitter at LO_Predators as well. Drop us a note. Let us know what you're thinking. We would love to hear from you. That's going to do it for this week's Locked On Predators podcast. We'll be back on Monday. Hope you all have a great weekend and a happy Mother's Day.